Welcome to Delightfully Dysfunctional, a podcast about navigating the emotions of the human condition and the challenges that come with it. I'm Kaylani Persian Mason, a psychotherapist and life coach with James Timmons, an ever-curious human. This is not a replacement for mental health therapy. Please seek out mental health care if that's what you're needing. This is an opportunity for self-healers to dive deep and understand more about themselves. Welcome back to Delightfully Dysfunctional. I'm Kaylani. I'm here with my co-host James.
Hi.
And I don't know, I kind of just flow with what I feel inspired by. So this week I was really thinking a lot about how we can develop and tune up our emotional intelligence.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And like all the ways that emotional intelligence plays a role, because I think one thing, I mean, that's a huge part of what we're promoting is like just being able to have friendships and relationships with people that you can have those conversations about emotions and your experiences with.
Right.
But we're also fighting against a big population that was raised in a culture and in a society that shamed emotion for a really long time. So there's a lot of people who feel like, you know, they were raised in a home where anger was taught to be something that you don't express. People just suppress it and it's never talked about.
Or anger is always justified.
Exactly. Yeah. Without thought. You're just always reactive anger versus a response or a calm interaction, a calm conflict resolution. So where you grow up in, like the petri dish of your family of origin, your home, plays a big influence in how you process emotion later on in your life. And so when we can really sit with what we feel and use them as our little guides or these tools that are helping us understand ourselves better, boy, we can have such a healthier relationship with ourselves, and there's no shaming, and we can have better communication with the people in our lives, fewer disagreements. We can even have better physical health because we can know how to calm our nervous system. So it affects so many parts of our life, and I just want to talk about it because here it is, typically the thing that I think, I guess in my role as a therapist, I see also a lot of people minimizing or disregarding their emotions.
Yeah, that's everything you're saying as far as like feeling the safety to like really lean into your feelings and express your emotions, having that type of relationship or culture and that freedom. Because I was just thinking about a friend of mine who grew up in this like upbringing where they were they were kind of expected to serve always. And so anytime they felt minimized or feeling like less than, they were always like, I'm being ridiculous. I'm sorry.
Right. So they can minimize, and then you can strip away your own boundaries, or like you can shrink yourself to make yourself small.
Right. But then so she quietly, like, it was frustrated. But I remember I said, no, like, you are justified. Like, you can't, anyway, that type
No, that's great. So there's that kind of brings me to another point as we uncover emotions. There's primary emotions and there's secondary emotions.
Yeah.
And I like to think of it a little bit like an iceberg, where a primary emotion is kind of more basic. It's like joy, anger, fear, sadness, the basics, surprise. And secondary emotions are more complex, like disgust and disappointment and, feeling jealousy or shame. And if you picture it like an iceberg, about 10% of an iceberg is above the surface of the water and 90% is underneath in the ocean.
Yeah.
So we might show and express anger. It feels easier to express that. It doesn't feel as vulnerable to express that. But inside, those secondary, more complex emotions might be, I feel really disregarded. I feel invisible. I feel misunderstood. And that, if we can't get to an understanding of that part there, it's going to be really difficult to have good conflict resolution where we can even say, this is how you made me feel, and help someone understand our perspective or make an attempt to understand theirs without being defensive.
Right. And so, that phrase, emotional intelligence, it's really would you say it's really like a product of just that practicing and always like navigating those? Because like a primary emotion would be almost like a byproduct of like, or it's like a symptom of all the deeper root causes, right?
That's a great way to think of it. Where is it coming from? Yeah, I think that it is meant to be a little messenger for us to be more curious. But oftentimes, again, in the culture that we grow up in the society that we grow up in, I think that we all also have different natural levels of emotional intelligence that we're born with, just like other forms of intelligence. Like, I do not have the whatever intelligence it is that makes you athletic and coordinated. Like, that was not, you can't have it all. I don't have that.
Wait, weren't you at the gym before this?
Well, I wasn't anything that required a lot of coordination.
Okay.
I wasn't having to like dribble a ball or anything like that. That would be like, no one wants to see that. Well, maybe you do, but it would be like on America's Funniest Home Videos or something like that. So I think there's those factors as well. But huge, I mean, human beings, we are meant to have to need and require a lot of nurture, not just nature. When a baby is born, you can't just like leave them in the woods and call it good.
Right.
It's years of nurturing and teaching our offspring, our children, about our emotions, about our world, about how to interact in the world. So most people in our generation even didn't have parents who knew how to manage their emotions and sit with their emotions, understand them,
right,
talk through things, model appropriate communication, like, right? And I think each generation, I see it evolving. Like, I see a completely different generation of dads that are more present, that are more connected with their kids,
more aware of what their actions are doing to their children. Yeah,
exactly. So I think we're getting like more and more tools, more and more understanding. And if you want to deepen that and you are a parent, boy, your tiny little humans are such beautiful teachers here to help you, even if it drives you crazy. Oh my gosh. Like the patience that's required for being a parent, it can be frustrating and it can be hard and it can be taxing. And I think, for example, I feel like my daughter is definitely here for me to be more present and more playful and more fun.
Yeah.
And I have to remind myself of that when I'm busy, multitasking and doing the things that I think need to be happening in that moment.
Yeah.
To also like thank her. And I have these moments where I'm like, thank you. I do need to stop and play. I can make time for this. I don't have to rush through this moment of the day. Maybe I can pause. And in those same, that's just one example of how she is my teacher. But again, in how do we strengthen that emotional intelligence? If you do happen to be a parent who's listening, I guess I reflect on that for you and what your kiddos might be here to teach you about. What are they inspiring you on? What comes up for you as a parent when you think about that?
Yeah, the first thought is I was thinking of this this thing that Mr. Rogers said during an interview where he said one day he went over to visit his grandkids, and I don't know their names. Anyway,
you don't need to know that.
Yeah.
I'd be like shocked if you were like, Mr.
Joshua.
Rogers. Yeah.
No, and one of the boys threw a ball and it hit Mr. Rogers or something, and Mr. Rogers he said, I was in a mood, and he said he rebuked his grandson, and then he a few moments later realized, he goes, I walked into their space, into their world, and then demanded that they conform to my mood. And he said, so I took my grandson aside and apologized and said, will you please forgive me, because that was wrong of me. I expected you to just instantly change when I walked into your space. And I was like, I love that. And then everything you're saying about your child can't be expected to conform without the knowledge. And also it's better when we enter into their space and become that safe person for them to learn from. And that's really the best place to teach that, is in their space, in their world. And then also I had another thought about you mentioned previous generations never understood how to process their emotions. And I because I've observed the previous generation before us was boomers. And so I've observed that there's so much like black and white thinking and so much like, just push it under the surface. And then that whole analogy of icebergs, like when you push an iceberg below the surface, it'll just come right back up. And so that picture of like if you're suppressing anger or sadness or whatever, the unacceptable emotion,
the buoyancy, it'll come back up.
Always comes back up,
right?
And it usually sends little ripples and waves outwardly.
Oh my gosh,
this is a beautiful analogy.
Whoa, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, totally though. We affect other people when we don't process our emotions more fully.
Yeah.
We can't even show up authentically then. We don't even know ourselves.
Yeah.
We aren't striving for personal growth if we're pushing those things away. And we aren't developing any stress reduction or self-awareness. So all of that is going to affect the quality of our relationships, which human connection is a huge piece of human health.
Right.
And it's a huge piece of what makes being a human joyful and fun. Like my most pleasant memories are always when I have like connected moments with someone. I love it. It's beautiful. And yet I think we're really fearful of that in some ways, or we put a lot of barriers up. And especially since COVID, that's most definitely what has spiked anxiety and depression and loneliness, is this fear to being vulnerable, to being open.
Yeah.
And I think a lack of practice in processing your emotions, because we were cooped up, and most people and kids and adolescents were on their devices, and that doesn't allow you any space or time to pause and think about what you're feeling. Why would I pause and think what I'm feeling if it's unpleasant at times?
Yeah.
When I could distract myself with 1,000 dog videos.
That would not distract me. You shared a couple things on your story this morning that I feel like talk about pausing and stillness or something. I feel like, I don't remember what it was, but I feel it.
I don't know what it was either.
let me pull it up real quick, because I thought they were good. And then here it is. Healing looks like a calm, flexible nervous system. That's what you posted.
A flexible nervous system. Yeah. Oftentimes, I think there's a thought that healing means always feeling calm in every situation. And that, to me, assumes that emotions, anything that would be, anger or a loneliness or sadness, is then bad.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we have good and bad emotions. We have pleasant and unpleasant emotions, but they're all meant to be teachers.
Yeah.
So even if I'm at the height of my mental health, wouldn't it make sense if someone disrespected me in some way? I'm trying to think, if someone walked up and like slapped me, it would make sense if anger.
Yeah.
That would be justified anger.
Right.
Like I wouldn't want to repress that anger. That would look like not having boundaries.
Exactly. Or taking the abuse or something.
Right. Yeah. If something happened to a person in my life who I care about, sadness is going to be in grief, deep grief.
Yeah.
Is going to be a normal and healthy thing to express.
Right.
So when it says flexibility, the healthy nervous system is a flexible nervous system. It's a nervous system that can allow space for the emotions that come up without shaming them.
Yeah.
And so what that means is we have to be aware of our meta emotions. Meta emotions mean the way we feel about our feelings.
Oh, I thought it was the way we felt on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, Facebook has it's taken over your brain. Meta emotions. It's been implanted in your brain.
The other thing you shared, it says a young Pueblo.
I love Young Pueblo.
You shared it. Unpopular truth. What's meant for you will sometimes feel scary, risky, and new. Ease and calm don't always mean you're moving in the right direction. The biggest rewards usually come from having the guts and perseverance to create your own path. And because the theme lately I've heard over and over, just random places, is stillness and but then being present and then also just emotional resilience. Because the seasons that I went through, I can now look at and go, yes, I 0 out of 5 stars, hated it, but I now have this resilience and wisdom and like all these tools that whenever those emotions come back, and they inevitably will, I can greet them warmly because I know how to deal with them. If I had suppressed that whole time, if I had blamed and like gone into victim mode or whatever, I would be in just such a place of self-sabotage today.
And like victimhood.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like and I think people can get so blinded and stuck in those places, which is so sad for me because it does affect the people around them, and ultimately affects their quality of life.
Yeah.
Their ability to fully be immersed and in awe and curious and having fun and making connections in this life that we don't know what the expiration date is. So it's precious.
Yeah.
Each moment, each day.
Every painful, like the way I had this visual the other day of like every like painful lesson, every joyful experience, everything is like a rock on a beach. Have you ever gone and just like flip rocks over? And there's
We like to skip rocks a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like big ones.
Yeah.
You flip them over, and there's always like some bugs or something, or like maybe some
Crusty
Yeah.
stuff and yeah.
So I had this visual where you flip a rock over, and the rock is like a painful experience or a happy experience. You flip it over, and there's all these little messengers, all these little messages, and those are like the lessons. If you just like, if you don't really explore the rock and the experience, then you're going to miss all the lessons and the messages and the information.
Yeah. And that's a lot of what I do, is that I don't think that comes supernaturally, and it is uncomfortable, and we are like busier than I think we're meant to be as humans right now.
Yeah.
So sometimes people need the space to have someone ask them, how does that make you feel? And if they say, I don't know, then I say, I want you to sit with it, actually.
Yeah. I always say, no, but I think you do know.
I want you to sit with it. It's
Yeah.
going to be uncomfortable. Or I say, tell me where you feel it in your body then.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how much that body guidance opens up a completely different dialogue.
Yeah.
Instantly. Instantly, then what I hear is, well, actually, it feels like this. And then I might say, well, how long do you think you felt that way? How long have you felt that need to please others? How long have you felt that feeling that you're just bad?
Yeah.
And then they'll say, I think I felt it since I was like 7. And this thing happened. And now there's a story. Now there's a part that
And
can
you're
like tell you a
awesome.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now you are understanding your emotions.
Yeah.
Now you're getting to those secondary emotions. But if we stay stuck in the I don't know and in the I'm going to brush it aside, we never get to know like the nugget of truth that emotion is telling us, which is usually the key that unlocks this understanding to loving ourselves better and loving other people better.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like if you don't like the way that experience or if you don't like the way that feeling makes you feel, then the only way to become more resilient to it is to like lean into it and really explore it.
So like one metaphor for this primary, secondary emotion and the meta emotions we're talking about would be if your emotions were like characters in a play.
Yeah.
And the meta emotions are like the theater director, and they're giving their feedback and their reaction to the actor's performance. So the actors can play out their play, their scenes, and the meta emotion director is going to either, applaud or criticize or provide some kind of feedback. And the actors are still going to be they're going to be influenced by that feedback. And what we might want to do then is like get some training for our meta emotion director so that they can, instead of saying, well, that was a shit performance, maybe they say, you got a lot of practice getting to do that scene, and that's the first time you've done that scene. So the good news is these things went well, and we learned what we can do next time.
Yeah. Compassion.
That's like a coach coaching you through, instead of what can often happen is this sense of like perfectionism that I think that meta emotion director can embody, that says, shame on you for not getting it right the first time, you piece of shit. Why didn't you, like it's mean. It says the meanest things to us. It says things that are rooted in that core fear, that core hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, the critical inner self, and everyone has like this fear of failure that where they believe that like winning is the only acceptable outcome to anything, you know. I saw this one little take.
Well, and that's all ego. So
Yeah.
this is like, how do you break out of your ego? Because ego isn't curious. Ego always thinks it's right.
Right. Yeah. I saw this one clip with Kobe Bryant, and I don't know if he was being sincere in this because, anyway, they asked him, like, the interviewer lady asked him, do you consider yourself somebody who hates to lose or loves to win? And he said, neither. I consider myself somebody who is always just trying to like get better and learn, be in the present moment. And what he said was really profound.
That's such a good answer.
But I was sitting there like, Kobe, I've seen you like throw a fit for losing. Like, you know, I think that he just wanted to be a little profound. I mean, it was a beautiful answer.
Think both could be true, because I find myself, when you're in the phase of learning, kind of wavering between the two sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, of like, oh, this thing made me upset, and then hopefully you have these moments of reflecting on all these pieces I'm explaining, where you can come back and say, well, but in the big picture.
Yeah. Well, and maybe that was a moment where he, like, in that moment, started reflecting, like, okay, what got me to such a high level of success is that constant, you know, self-improvement and getting better, like 1% at a time, because that's the only way possible.
People can be competitive and still, you know, clearly think that it's fun. So maybe even like he finds that competitive streak, it's fun, not as intense as it's.
Right.
I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent. But like, yes. And that drives me to my point even in beginning this podcast, because I've shared on the podcast before, like the idea of there being video for this or anything being like on YouTube hadn't occurred to me when I called you to start a podcast. And I was like, does it have to be? Like, I pictured being able to be in my like cozy sweats, no
Which
makeup.
you still can.
I could let myself go. We could give that a shot and see what the algorithm says. Maybe people are into that, and like sweats and like a messy bun. But like I decided to try something that scares me. So actually, that first quote by Young Pueblo, or poem by Young Pueblo that you read, was almost like a message to myself. Like I was needing to hear that. And I've tried to keep this in a fun space. And sometimes it's drifted into somewhere that feels stressful. There's just a whole delightfully dysfunctional like project endeavor that we have. But then I remind myself, even in the moments when there might be like a mean comment or something, that a growth area that we're navigating, I'm like, yeah, but I get to practice not letting that bother me. I get to practice. Like, aren't I grateful for the opportunity to practice having a different perspective on this situation that might be frustrating me? And
you're becoming more resilient to like the negativity. But then also, I'm proud of you for that.
Oh,
but because I remember, sorry, this is not really to the point. I'm just speaking specifically about what you just mentioned. But like, I remember watching how like some of those, and we can delete this, but how some of those comments affected you a little bit, and it probably hurt your feelings, right? And I remember, like when I was doing TikTok and I had a bunch of viral videos. And there were a lot of like critical comments, and I remember deciding like, okay, I'm not gonna give any attention to those, because if I want to reach like a level of success, those people are always gonna be there, and I'm gonna appreciate them because they're gonna like drive the algorithm, you know. And so their opinion literally means nothing, because I later figured out that the whole man in the arena, and
right.
So it's like, doubters, thank you for being here.
I guess so. I think even though for me, success is not even the primary reason I'm doing this, because like that's not even a guarantee at all, you know. So I needed a different kind of fuel for me, and it's impact and connection and like community, even community for me, but a sense of community and wanting to provide what I think are some basic mental health tidbits for people, or thoughts and new perspectives that I would like to put out into the world.
Right.
I think that there needs to be lots of people doing that. So I
Yeah.
know that I am just one drop in the ocean trying to provide a little bit of positivity in a world that feels scary sometimes and overwhelming. And being human is hard. And I
Right.
think that sometimes we need a cheerleader. And I really like cheering people on.
Yeah. Thank God for those cheerleaders, because they're the ones who will come alongside you when you don't believe in yourself, and they're like the fuel that just kind of helps you take those little precious steps out of your own like dark place.
Yeah, I want to crack people out of that place. I want to bring in some light. And
Right.
I think that comes from being someone who's also been stuck in that spot before.
Yeah.
So it feels also like an honor to have that role.
Yeah.
But this is a universal thing that we're talking about, this need to understand your emotions on a deeper level. And I want to just drive that home for anyone who maybe, like I said, did grow up in a home environment that maybe didn't nurture all emotions to be safe and okay to process.
Yeah.
But in Germany, I'm going to butcher these. This is going to be hilarious to anyone who actually speaks any of these languages. In German, the term Gefühl über Gefühl. I think that's what it is.
Gefühl über Gefühl.
Yeah.
That's how you gotta say
Gefühl
it.
über Gefühl. It means feelings about feelings, to convey that concept by feeling about this feeling. Like we don't have like a terminology for that that's like common.
Okay,
And
no disrespect to Germany, but man, you guys have a funny sounding language.
German is maybe a rough one. It really is. These other ones, so Japanese, it's kanju no kasi.
Okay.
And that just means it can be used to express the idea of emotions, although it's not a commonly used term. Emotions of emotions.
Let me say it like a Japanese grandpa.
Okay.
Wait, say it again one more time.
Kanju no kasi.
Kanju no kasi.
Oh, that's it. That was good.
Kanju no kasi. There
Whoa. Whoa.
we go. Do you feel the grandpa?
Yeah. I felt like wise Asian grandpa really came through.
Kanju no kasi.
Yeah. Grandpa, is that you?
From diaphragm.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay, this one, French is more what you would expect. Les émotions sur les émotions.
Les émotions, what?
Sur would be, I guess, what they mean about.
Okay.
S-U-R. And then les émotions. Les émotions sur les émotions.
That's close to English.
Right. Again, just highlighting that universal concept. And journaling, I would say, has been one profound way that I have processed through my meta emotions. And I just start with, this is what I'm feeling. And I think if you don't know how you're feeling, if some of the tools that I've given, like paying attention to where in your body you might feel it, even starting to journal from that place, I feel a tightness in my chest.
Okay.
You know, it feels oppressive. Like you can start to drift off of that.
Right.
And if that feels difficult, then there's this other resource that you can just search Emotions Wheel online, and it gives you a resource that really breaks down all of those primary emotions like sadness and gives you 20 other ways to describe the emotion in more detail. So the more detail that you can describe how you feel, that also gives you more of an ability to have that emotional intelligence, so that it's, instead of like, well, I'm sad, it's like, I'm hopeless.
Yeah.
Well, that's more specific. That's a different flavor of sadness.
When you said emotion wheel, I had a visual of that's how my nervous system operates in the middle of the night, like the Price is Right
emotion
reel,
wheel?
and just wherever it lands, that's what I wake up with.
Oh no, is that what are you still waking up?
No, I've not been waking up in the middle of the night. Because I've developed like this form of emotional resilience where my mindset is like become, I don't want to say unshakable, but a little more unshakable.
Yeah.
You know, I still can catastrophize, but I'm a lot better.
It's good. It's good to notice when you see some improvement, because I think sometimes when you're in it, you can not notice it.
Yeah.
Right. And always be like, well, I'm not to that goal yet. I'm not to this goal yet.
Yeah.
No, pause and recognize when you're like, dang, I'm doing something
Yeah,
that,
I
or, you
feel
know,
a lot better. Yeah.
like I feel different, or this new habit has changed, and
Yeah.
give yourself like a gold star.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having this conversation about emotions, how we feel about how we feel. I think that it weaves into so many important parts of our life as humans. And even if it is uncomfortable, I totally get that. But it can add to the quality of your life and the connections that you have, especially to yourself.
Yeah.
So if you are needing any guidance in that area, especially when it comes to having a happy and healthy relationship with your partner, I'm going to be hosting a new Intentional Love seminar April 13th in Richland, Washington. So you can check out my website at coachkaylani.com to look at the tickets and find out more about what it is about. I am a Gottman leader for the 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work, and this is an evidence-based, science-backed course that will help your marriage get back on track so that you can start feeling like you're falling in love with your partner all over again. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Delightfully Dysfunctional. If you would like more content from us, please check out our YouTube page, where we also have therapist reactions to music videos and other content for you. Yeah. Like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.